Lippitt, owner of the Hill Street Group and host of Communication is an Art, the podcast. I'm a communication strategist, a public speaker, and a leadership trainer. Most weeks, I'll be joined by other communication specialists, but every few weeks, you'll hear from just me to equip you, the listener, with practical tools and strategies to navigate through your day with confidence. These podcasts are always non-scripted and conversational. So let's dive into this together. So I am so excited today to welcome Robin Huling of Warner Communication. She is the president. Here, we're going to bring her out. She is the president and lead consultant at warnercommunication.com. And I'm just going to say, hi, Robin. It's such a pleasure. We don't know each other, so this is exciting for me. And tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for having me. We don't know each other. We did get to pre-speak a little bit, and we bonded right away. So I love women and people who like to talk about effective communication. So hopefully we'll keep this down to the 30 minutes we're allotted. We promise. Yes. Well, I'm originally from Florida, born and raised, and now I live in Utah with my 4 kids. I got into the effective communication leadership training world at Universal Studios in Orlando. Moved down right after I graduated from high school and worked my way in through the different restaurants and entertainment industries and landed at Universal Studios, where I fell in love with DISC theory, which is all about behavior theory and effective communication. And so I just took that passion into now here in Utah, where I created my own consulting firm to help leaders and individuals really find how to communicate with their teams.
So you weren't one of the people in the heads that, walk past you.
Do you know what? That was my dream. When I graduated high school, I thought I could go down and be Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty. And Disney said, no, but we'll put you at the hotel. How about that? And I said, okay.
No, so I would say that Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, I would absolutely love to be. I don't have the blonde hair for it. But I meant like the Mickey Mouse, those cartoons.
Oh, I'm too tall.
There should be communication classes for them, nonverbal communication classes for them. Yes.
There's very specific heights for those characters, and I never fell in because I'm pretty tall, so 5'8", but not tall enough to be the really good characters either. So,
okay.
And it's really hot in Florida. I don't know what those people wish on their lives, but it's hot. Yes. And they suffer a lot. So
yes, though you can always tell it. This is a total off the subject, but you can always tell in the winter the people who drive to Florida because they have coats in their cars.
Yes.
And the people who get the cold weather,
yes,
the whole family is in really, really expensive sweatshirts.
100%. Yes.
That's my personal.
You've been there. No, you've been there. Yes.
Yeah, so that's my nonverbal communication piece about Disney is you can always tell where people are from. So
always,
as we dive in, you are going to talk to us about the strategic advantage of being likable in leadership. And I have to say, I am going to be listening intently because that is not my sweet spot. Shocking that it might be. So I want to learn from you as well. So tell us a little bit about how you got to that piece and where that kind of goes.
Yeah, this is something that I'm actually extremely passionate about. And it started way back when I was 12 years old and got kicked out of Girl Scout camp because I basically formed a coup against our leader on our trip, and she brought us all home and sent us all home. And while I was sitting to get picked up with my sister, who was my, wingman, the camp director said, Robin, if you would just only learn how to use your power for good, you could come back and be a counselor. Well, at the age of 12, I didn't realize what she had said. And I had always been naturally loud and kind of assertive and aggressive, and leadership came naturally to me, but I came in a loud form. And it wasn't until almost, 10 years later when I worked at Universal Studios Orlando, and they sent me through a DISC assessment. And when I realized all the blind spots that I wasn't realizing, it really like shook me to my core, honestly, of like, I had always loved all the strengths about me. My supervisors loved all my strengths. But when it really came down to it, my team did not love me. And I found out years later that, basically I was like the B word, I guess we'll use bossy, but a lot of people did not really like, because in the 90s, I only had male figures to look up to as mentors. And I naturally have a lot of masculine energy. And I just leaned into that aggressiveness and that demanding of respect.
So I'm just going to stop you right there.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I think that I have learned over the years is that while women are aggressive, men are assertive. Mm-hmm. That's how they're looked at. Mm-hmm. And it's a really negative, like it's become a really negative piece that's put just on women. If a man is trying to get ahead, you never call him aggressive. Mm-hmm. It's something that only women are called. And so to me in communication, that's one of the things that really kind of makes me a little bit crazy.
So I know, but if we look at it a different way, and I talk to a lot of women in leadership, and there is a lot of double standards out there, a lot. Mm-hmm. But that is the actual world we live in now. So we do have to realize that is going to happen. So then what do we do about it? So as women who are naturally aggressive, how do you balance that? And that's where I talk about the likable leadership. So if you are aggressive, and naturally most women that are aggressive struggle with vulnerability. That's just not their natural. Those don't go hand in hand. Aggressive and vulnerable. And so vulnerable is a hot topic. So how can we do that? And being able to balance that is where you find the assertiveness in the middle, is how I feel.
Okay. So I have a question. Mm-hmm. Did you find yourself aggressive before someone told you you were aggressive?
Nobody actually told me I was aggressive. It was more about a self-awareness of, did people like to be around me? Did people like to be on my shift? Did I have a good rapport? And more, so I had friends. I had friends. I have a great sense of humor. I was very sarcastic. I was fun to be around. But did that actually make me a good leader? And those two things aren't always synonymous. And I think people think that too. Like when I talk about likable leadership, people think, oh, they have to be charismatic, or they have to be funny, or they have to be well-liked. But the truth is when it boils down to likable leadership, it is how your team feels when they are around you. So was I approachable? Did I listen? Did I jump to conclusions? Did I make decisions? And then everybody had to follow up with that decision. And oftentimes that's what happens too, is when we don't really want to sit and say, like, maybe that wasn't the right idea, but we can't back down because I'm the leader and then they'll find me weak. And so those are the things that you have to come in, like self-awareness, and realize, is this an ego decision, or is this really the betterment of the team or the goal and the mission of what we need to accomplish today?
Interesting.
So
once you figured that out,
right,
where did that take you on your journey? How did you see the results of that play out?
Oh my gosh, I am a whole different person now than I was. I mean, hopefully everybody does progress, you know, when you've lived 5 decades almost, hopefully we've all progressed. But what I did when I did take the DISC analysis, which just puts you on this, like, oh, these are your strengths, these are some of your challenges, this is where your natural behavior lies. When I realized that the empathy part of my natural behavior style wasn't really there, that wasn't a strong suit of mine, I didn't like that about myself. And I felt like I wanted to work on that part of myself. I wasn't a good listener. Listening did not come naturally to me. My sister-in-law, I had a conversation with her and I was like, oh, she asks follow-up questions and she doesn't just talk the whole time and doesn't talk over me and we're not competing. I really like that. And so I practiced my listening skills. It doesn't come naturally, but now the results of being a good listener far outweigh what it used to be like when I wasn't a good listener and I would just talk over people and make decisions, or So much nicer to be around in a sense, but just more well-rounded of putting other people's needs as a top of awareness of I need to be somebody who can take feedback. I need to be somebody who can take input. I need to be somebody who, when people work around me, they're working at their best level. And I think that's what really I talk about when it comes to likable leadership is, do you have your team working at their best, highest self because they're comfortable enough to do that? Or are you having them work in a state of stress and judgment and spinning their wheels of over checking, over analyzing because they're so worried that they're going to fail you? Not because they don't not want to fail you, but they're just scared of the consequences.
That's really interesting. That talk over people to me is also a trigger for me. People say that about me sometimes, and it is a learned thing. So I like, when I work with the clients, like to kind of practice what I preach. And so I talk a lot about the power of the pause, and that if you pause after what is essentially every paragraph, even though you're speaking, because we're the end of that thought or every thought, and give the other person space to ask a question, then they'll start doing it back at you. And then you have that pause that says the other person can talk now.
Yes. It's reading the cues, reading body language.
Yeah.
Because I used to think that everybody was like me. And if they had something to say, they just would. When I didn't realize that people aren't going to talk over, they're waiting to kind of be given the clue that it's their time to talk. And so that's one of the things of getting to know everybody around you and realizing not everybody is like you. And so how do you let them be themselves when they're around you and you don't just take over? For some leaders. So there's the opposite though, too. We talk about like validation and the need for validation, right? And again, everybody's so different. So leaders who feel like they need to be liked, that's a whole nother issue on putting other people's needs ahead of the business or your organization is another challenge. That's not the same thing either. Being validated, if you're seeking outside validation, that is not healthy. You're never going to be validated enough with outside. But if you're a team leader and you're not giving enough validation for your team, that's something you have to be aware of. So it's very, and I'm sure you're with communication, is everybody is so different. And I would never give the same advice blanketly to everybody. The biggest example of that is it's just business. It's not personal, right? So
excuse me, if you're listening on the podcast now, I just want to let you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to let you know there's steam coming out of my ears because it is always personal.
There you go.
I have a friend who lives overseas, and she always says, no disrespect, but, and I say to her, okay, wait, let me get ready because you're going to be disrespectful. You just told me you don't like something.
Yes, exactly.
And to me, that's the same kind of thing. It's not personal. Yes, it is. When you say that there's something going on here, it is personal. And I think people should recognize both the giver of that and the receiver of that.
Yep. And you have to take it into account of some leaders, naturally, it's never personal for them. And it doesn't come naturally to think about other people's feelings. And so in their mindset, it's never personal. But then you have the other people that it's only ever personal. And so they take any feedback as an attack on themselves or something they did wrong, or they spiral into imposter syndrome. And so those are the ones that you coach and say, no, it's not personal. It's business. And then the other ones, I'm like, it's always personal. It's business. And it's how they have to interpret their leadership styles or who they're working with. Because you can't change anybody else. I can't change that leader who is aggressive, who is taking everything, making everything too personal. So then I have to adjust in my head, figuring out how can I work best around them. But if that is a trigger for you and someone says to you, it's not personal, it's just, it's business, it's not personal, but they've just cut you to the core. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. They've cut me to the core. So then you
a
ask
good
clarifying,
response.
right? So I would suggest asking clarifying questions and turn back and like, did you mean this as a personal attack? The way you came across was that you're attacking me as my skill level or as my behavior. Is that what you meant? So I just was talking to a friend literally this weekend who is a firefighter, and she was talking about one of her coworkers who graduated just 5 months before her, but he's always telling her stuff to do, and he's always like condescending. So I simply said, well, next time he says something, go to him and say, I'm sure you're intending this with well-meaning. I'm sure your intentions are good, but it's coming across condescending. Is that the way you mean it to? So it's really about clarifying so that you don't interpret, because if you are taking it personal and you don't address it, you will beat yourself up. And you will go through this cycle because not addressing it allows it. And they can't read your mind. And again, everybody's different. So what you're taking personal, they would never think of taking personal. And so you have to really stand up for yourself and find out, what do they mean? Do they really mean to be a jerk? And sometimes they are, actually. I've dealt with enough toxic leaders that there is nothing, even when they bring me in, I don't have the power to tell them to fire them because that's what I want to say. So then I have to protect the team. So then I give the team tools because it's not the same. Like if you tell somebody your boundaries and they are a normal human being that wants to help, they will try. They were like, I understand that. I'll give you feedback more positively, or I'll put it in writing. But if you're talking to somebody toxic and you tell them your boundaries, and they weaponize those against you. Right. So it's humans. I mean, humans are so different, and every workplace is so different. And our job as a leader isn't to make everybody else well-rounded around us, like to poke all their pricklies away, but it's our job to be able to manage the people on our team to not affect the rest of the team. So that's kind of with likable leader, is knowing your team and knowing how they work best, how they receive feedback best. And all humans want to feel valued. Right. They just do in their job. They want to feel valued. And so if you can make your team feel confident around you, if you can make them feel comfortable around you, do they feel capable? Do they feel like you trust them? Those are the things that are important, because competency should be the ground floor of why they're hired, right? So they have competency. Mm-hmm. Everything else is that soft skill as a leader that you want to bring out of them.
That's true. And there's also, which we haven't even talked about, but that line between being liked and being respected. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there are leaders in my life that I've dealt with or worked with, whatever, that I may not, I don't want to go out for dinner with them, or I don't want to invite them over, but I respect what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I respect that they're doing it for the greater good and for that team involvement. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of, that could be a whole different thing we talk about. Well,
yes, but that those do. And that really does go into the minority though. So there are very few people that are like an Elon Musk or like a Martha Stewart, or that are really at that level that they don't really care. But ironically, did you watch the Martha Stewart documentary?
I have not.
Okay. So obviously she's a powerhouse, yes. Right? And somebody asked her, like they ask all women in power, how do you overcome imposter syndrome? And she said, I don't have that. Like, that's not something, respectably. But then when you watch her documentary, there was a phase where she got a divorce and she was having to go out, and she didn't want to go out because she felt, and I was, right. I don't want to call out Martha Stewart, but that's a form of imposter syndrome. So we all suffer with that. And I 100% believe that respectability, though, does come with amount of fairness and objectivity. And I don't think that they're separate. A lot of, especially men or dominant personalities or aggressive, think that those are separate, and that, but we've learned through decades and decades of the workforce that, what worked in our boomer generation and Gen X of like, you do what you're told. You do because that's what you're told, or fear. We were raised in Gen X of like being afraid of being, lost behind and living in a van down by the river, right? On that SNL skit. And now that is the millennials and Gen Z's dream, is to live in a van down by the river.
Yeah, because they have access to the internet and we did not.
Yeah.
I'm a little older than you. I'm still a boomer. I am a boomer. I'm a proud I'm at the very tail of the boomers. But, when I said I was going to start my own business, leave the corporate world, do my own thing, people were shocked.
Yeah.
I was a woman. Let's not forget. And B, I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't looking for that gold watch.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for independence and to be able to go out to lunch and work at 10 o'clock at night and do these different things. I didn't have a team in that job, though I had hundreds of clients. So it was a really big team because you had to keep 100 people always
all the same
all the balls in the air and everybody happy with each different personality. And I found standing up for myself cut through a lot of, I don't want to say misogyny, but I will. So, it just was. So sometimes you just have to follow your gut to be a good leader, to still involve people, to still bring people into that team balance and that idea that everybody has a valued voice. And we can talk about that, on another podcast, making sure everyone has their voice in the room. But I think that what you're saying is really spot on in terms of not being afraid of the term aggressive. I have to say, I've always been afraid of that term, but you described it very differently. And I really appreciated that.
Well, people if you're running a team, your team will appreciate you being aggressive for them. But that is also the same as you're willing to fall on the sword for them.
Correct.
So you're aggressive because you trust what your team has done, provided for you, and you are a team and you're going to go to bat for them. That's when you're aggressive.
Yeah. I just worked with a nonprofit president, a volunteer president, who was kind of getting skewered for everything you're talking about. But there was no question that she was willing to fall on her sword and go through this process, which was a ridiculous thing,
right?
To keep her position, but she was really defending other people.
Yeah,
and it's really true.
I mean, that's really the difference. And likable seems like a soft word, but when you really engage on what likable means on your team, and statistics actually just prove it. There's 72% of people say they work better for leaders that they like, bosses that they like. Yeah. So if you want to play with the odds, that's go ahead and lean instead of try to fight it and see. But I think a lot of times, like you said too, is we women especially, we get caught up in these expectations of I'm not like them, so I need to be like that, instead of this is who I am. What are my strengths? Let me really lean hard into those strengths because I'm here. But where are my blind spots that are going to affect other people and how they work around me? And can I change that kind of behavior? Because we don't really change our natural inclinations, but we can change the behavior that goes with it. I'm super aggressive, but you know what? I give a lot of positive feedback. I tell everybody now on my team, when I appreciate them, that I appreciate them. I never did that in my 20s, but simply letting them know, I appreciate you. I am grateful that you did. Thank you for having my back. Very simple. Whether they like me or want to go out to dinner with me, they like who they are when they're around me. And that's the difference.
That's really good advice. That's really, I think it really shows where we are and what we're doing, and how to get along so that nobody says to you, it's not personal.
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal of good communication. Yeah. That people stop saying that, because it is, if you it's kind of, I'll be honest. It's kind of like the bully in junior high who knows your buttons.
Yes.
And I think they say that because they know that is really going to hurt you to 100%. Your core. Yeah. And they don't say it to someone who they know could care less.
Right. It's very true. And I talk about that a lot when we talk about emotional intelligence, which is one of my favorite courses, is when you say they're pushing your buttons at work, why do you have those buttons? So you're the one that has to control, why is that even a button they're allowed to push? You know what? So you have to do, it always comes down to like self-awareness on like, why is that triggering me? And fair enough, maybe they are a jerk, but why am I letting that affect me? Right? Because we talk about emotional intelligence, you know, emotions just are, they're not bad or good, but what do we do with them? If it's a trigger, does it have a response that we don't really like? Or do we feel like we have to battle everything? And sometimes we naturally feel like we have to battle everything and everybody has to, and then that becomes exhausting. So,
well, I will say that Robin Huling, you are an amazing guest. I would love to have you back on the program. I've already like marked down 4 different topics we could talk about in the future. And I will just give a shout out because we did meet through Innovation Women.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that is specifically a place to empower women and get women on stages.
Yes.
And so I think it's really become a great source for me. I'm meeting with a lot of people from there. You can follow Robin on LinkedIn and Instagram at robinhuling.com, or at Robin Huling will be the spot to find her everywhere. And I just want to give you such a big thank you for joining me today. I want to let you know that from my end, I will be adding a link to a 5 tips for networking and going from saying hello to success in the workplace and in networking. And I look forward to you joining me again.
Please
put comments in, and this has been great. So thank you very much. And I am sure we will be here again soon.
I hope that'd be great.
Thank you again. I'm Pam Lippitt of the Hill Street Group. Communication is an art, and we look forward to joining you again. Thank you. Hi, this is Pam Lippitt from the Hill Street Group. Thank you for listening to Communication is an Art. Make sure you subscribe and continue to listen. We really appreciate it. Share with your friends all those different lovely things. And we will be back soon. Have a great day.